we have a few things that we want to go over with you, some updates, and also Michelle is going to present the mentor survey results. So on the agenda, first and foremost, right now it's just me and Michelle from as far as the staff that's on. I am Kimberly Breyer. Those of you that haven't met me, but I think I've met everyone on this training, and I'm the mentor manager in the Michelle League. She can't get video tonight, but she's the mentor coordinator. She's actually working remotely from North Carolina. She moved there about a year ago, and so she's been working with us until we are able to find someone that can work locally. So until then, we have Michelle, which, I want her to stay forever. But we know that eventually we have to find someone locally. So anyway, let's see. And then we also hired a new director of program services, Marilyn Schiavo. She's been with us, I think, 7 years. She is retiring. So she's working part-time, and Danielle Oldham, she just started last week, and she's going to be great, but she's got a lot of learning to do. So she's going to be the new director. Will's on, so that's great. I'll introduce him and after we're done with our business. All right, so some program updates. Right now, we have 402 students in our program that are active, 362 active mentors. Some of our mentors have more than one student, so that's why the numbers don't match. We do have a student possibly in Jupiter that will need a new mentor. And then I just found out we have a male at Atlantic High that might need a new mentor as well. So, but other than that, all our students are matched. We brought in 29 new students, and they are starting to meet their mentors and getting their sessions. And we will be bringing in close to, or we hope, over 100 more new students throughout this school year. So we're kind of going to do a rolling admissions maybe throughout the year to bring in our students. So if you have not been matched yet, you're on my list, but please don't hesitate to email me and say, hey, don't forget me. What's going on? I have no problems with that at all. And I can give you an update as far as our students coming in. Our college coaches started last month. We only have 4 coaches this year instead of 6. We are short-staffed, so they are a nice group of men and women, real just awesome group again that we have. And they're starting to meet with students one-on-one virtually. They're going to start going into the schools, meeting them face-to-face. Our club meeting started, and club meetings happen once a month for every school. All the schools are now participating in that this year. And every month, your school will have a club meeting. So what that means is when school is over on that day, the students meet in a designated area at the school. It could be the media center, it could be the cafeteria, wherever they decide. And all the Take Stock in Children students at that school get together and they have a meeting. So, and they talk about college readiness, they have different activities with them. And that's when our staff and our coaches are there with our students, and they meet for about an hour and a half. And it's a nice time for them to learn and also get to know other Take Stock in Children students that are in the program as well. Everything's in your newsletter. When Michelle sent the newsletter out for September, we have the club meeting schedule in there. Please, please look at our newsletters, scroll all the way down, and you want to click on the mentor button and also the student button. When you click on those buttons at the bottom, that will open up a new page that will have all kinds of resources, schedules. It will tell you, the club meetings. It will give you topics of discussion. If you have a senior, it's going to tell you all the senior information for the portfolio that they have to do this year. So please utilize the newsletter, because really it has everything in there that you need to know. All right. So we encourage you to do that every month. Sessions began. Everyone should be meeting with their student by now. If you're having difficulties contacting your student, please let me know in an email and we will see what we can do. You may meet your student in person or virtually, but please call the school first, because it depends on the protocols for each school. Most schools are accepting visitors, some are not. So just call the school. And you can do both. I mean, you can go once a month to the school, twice a month to the school, do half virtual, half in person, do all virtual. However, the two of you decide works best. Remember, if you're doing virtual on Zoom or Google Meets, make sure you send me the link or a calendar invite. The Mentor app is working beautifully. I know some of you are having issues. There's been some little glitches here and there because of the new version. But once you get on the new version and everything gets updated, then you'll have more success. They are going to provide a live training on September 30th. They sent an email out today to all our mentors to register, and also to all our students to register for this live workshop about the app. So Michelle's also going to send out a reminder about it, but I encourage all of you to register and encourage your students to do the same, so you both can be on the app. And you can video chat, you can text chat, it's monitored, it's easy to use, you can log in your sessions on the app or the website, and you also have the ability to, both of you can get on the Mentor Toolkit and utilize a toolkit using the app. It is now accessible to our students. So again, September 30th, the mentors go at 6 p.m. and the students are at 7 p.m. for the app and website training. And then we have our mentor session challenge this year. So please look at our September newsletter for that. It's a benchmark challenge. So every month, those mentors and mentees that have met their benchmarks for their sessions, their names will be placed in a drawing for a gift card prize. So I think for the end of September, everyone must have at least 2 sessions logged in, and then going forward, the sessions increase each month. So we have all the details about that contest in the September newsletter, and we will repeat it again in the October newsletter. And I think I even put it in my monthly email that I sent out. I think I did that on Friday or Thursday of last week. So make sure you read, everything's there. All righty. October 14th starts our new coffee talk, and Michelle will tell you more about that. And then our community showcase. We need speakers that want to share their career experiences. It could be any topic that you are familiar with. It could be a special interest. It could be a hobby. And every month, 2 times a month, we have mentors and speakers from our community that will talk to our students about their career or interest. It's on Zoom. I take care of all the details. All that you need to do is prepare your presentation, your PowerPoint, your visuals, whatever you want to share with the students. It's about 20-25 minutes long, and then there's questions and answers. It's a great time. Our students are learning so much from our mentors and our community, and we want to keep that going for the remainder of this school year from October to April. So if you're interested in being a facilitator, please email me. And then Michelle finally sent out the, I didn't mean that in a bad way, Michelle. But anyway, she sent out the invite. Um, oh, Lord. For the golf event on November 11th. It's at Drive Shack. It's a fun event and they have games and it's like a little competition, hitting the golf ball across the field and scoring. And so mentors and mentees are invited to this. We're going to have lunch. We're going to have giveaways. This is what we had planned right when COVID hit and we had to cancel it at the last minute. So now we've rescheduled finally. So that is November 11th. So make sure you RSVP, tell your student about it, but your student will have their own RSVP as well that we're going to be getting out to them soon. All right. So Michelle, they're all yours.
Okay, I'm here. Hello, everybody. It's good to see faces. I know you can't see mine, sorry. I still look the same, just probably a little more relaxed up here in the mountains, that
Yes.
mountain air, right? Anyways, so I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully everything works the way it's supposed to, because you know how that goes. The mentor survey, I know most of you had gotten that in the newsletter, but we wanted to go over it a little bit for you. Everybody can see it? You see
Yep.
my screen? Okay.
Yep.
I can't. All right.
You
So
got it.
we got it. Now let's see if I can get it to move. That would be good. There we go. So we're going to just go over some of the statistics and what's on the horizon and questions and comments if there's any. So supported by the following. As a new mentor, was the initial mentor training helpful and effective? As you can see, 119 agreed, 34 somewhat, and 20 no, not applicable. I feel supported by the Take Stock in Children Mentor Department. 161 agreed, 10 somewhat, and 3 disagreed. The disagreement was just strictly because of COVID and issues with, mostly with technology is really what happens. I receive regular updates and communication from the mentor department. 160 agreed, 13 somewhat, and 1 disagree. I know who to contact if I'm having a problem with my mentee or concerns. 160 agreed, 13 somewhat, and 1 disagree. It's easy to log my mentor sessions through the app and the portal and the website. Sorry, I got to move your pictures here because they're in the way of me reading. Sorry. And 150 agreed, 18 somewhat, and 3 disagreed, and 3 not applicable. And do you find the mentor resources available helpful? 125 agreed, 43 somewhat, 2 disagree, and 4 not applicable.
Michelle, I don't mean to interrupt. Do you know how many roughly participated in the survey in May and June?
I thought I had that on here.
Yeah.
Um,
But looking at the 160, 61, it looks like we had probably about 170 so mentors,
I
right?
think we had 176 to be.
Okay.
Yeah, 176.
So that's about a little over a third.
Yep.
Maybe,
Yeah.
yeah.
The reason
35%.
I think it's great that everybody does do this. I would hope that more people do it because we really do get a lot of good feedback from this. And that's kind of why I'm going over this with everybody so you know what everybody's kind of thinking at the same time. We're all on the same page, really.
Right.
This is, sorry, are you confident in your role as a mentor? And you can see 80.4% are confident, somewhat confident, 19%, and not confident, 0.6. Given the circumstances when you were given the opportunity to network with other mentors, most agreed, 56.1, somewhat agreed, 28.3, and disagree, 15.6. The opportunity to network is really mostly about we didn't have a lot of our mentor functions that we normally did last year. That had a lot to do with it, and the ambassador program. Resources utilized, the toolkit, 132, 76.3%. Monthly topics of discussion, you can see it's 44.5. Grade level roadmaps, a lot of you use those, almost half, well, 24.3%. And resources on the website or Facebook, 29.5%. So you can see that, we're all utilizing different forms.
And also, just to chime in about the website, we are updating our county website. So, I'm looking at the resources there and seeing what we can do with those. So just
Good.
wanted to give you an update. Go ahead.
Good. Yep. Participation in enhancing your mentoring experience. So the newsletters is 42.8%. Games that we play sometimes 6.4%. Back to school workshops 19%. Bridges out of poverty 8.3%. The newsletter or the monthly lunch and learns 13.8%, and the virtual happenings that we did last year 9.8%. So that's a real good round number of all the people of things that we can offer you and utilize. Have you heard from your mentor ambassador? So a lot of people, the reason I put some of these little comments is because there's a confusion of what a mentor ambassador was. And a mentor ambassador is the ambassador who is a mentor at your school. So the comment was, I've received tons of info from Kimberly, but none from a person over my assigned school. A lot of that had to do with sometimes we didn't have an ambassador for that school. I'm still not sure what it is. That's a great comment. I was never contacted by an ambassador by either school after my student transferred. It's really probably one of those things that probably fell through the cracks. Need more specific info for helping student and only an email response. So, Kimberly, you want to just go over that real quick with the mentor ambassador?
Yeah, so we are definitely trying this year to improve the program. However, I still need more participants. I mean, a lot of our schools are without ambassadors, like all our Boca schools. We don't have any ambassadors. South Village Academy, we don't have an ambassador. And also Glade Central, we don't have ambassadors for Glades, and I definitely need more than one. And we don't have to have one ambassador. You can have several at a school, a team of 2, 3, 4 people, and you all help each other. And basically, it's just another layer of support. So you're reaching out to the mentors every other month. Hey, how are you doing? And you don't have to call each mentor. You send them an email. I'm here. This is why I'm here. If you need something, let me know. If you have questions, let me know. And then each ambassador is supposed to do a little get together. Some of them are having get-togethers, every month. Some of them it's every other month. But you're only required to have one get-together each semester. So that's 2 a year. And you can do your get-together in person, or you can do your get-together virtually. However, all of you decide. Sometimes you have 5 people participate. Sometimes you have 15 participate. It's not for everyone, but those that really enjoy it and like it, they're gaining from it. So we want to grow, we want to make it stronger, and we need your support on that. Go ahead, Michelle.
Really,
thank you.
well, really, it's just being a liaison, because you remember when you went to schools and you were a little not sure of where can I meet my student? What's their lunch hours? Who do I talk to for certain things? And that's kind of what that mentor ambassador as a liaison for that school. So it's nice to have that. And if you're struggling with an issue with your student, that's a person to turn to say, hey, can you help me with this? Can we work it out? So it is really important. And they help us too in our department, because, then you have somebody else to talk to besides just us. So the TSIC Mentor App Experience, this was a little over the year that it first rolled out. So 37.6 most effective, 6.4 least effective. Felt like you made a positive difference, 70.5 said yes. 28.9 answered somewhat, and 0.6 answered no. Some of the comments, she turned to me for support for many things. We had an instant rapport, appreciates the new ideas I present to her. The relationship established and guidance provided have been invaluable. Mom came on the virtual G chat one night to personally thank me. We discussed school, personal, and real world situations. I feel that I made a positive impact and we have truly connected. I still speak to my first mentee who is a graduate and working in a field I helped her to choose. My mentee told me that she looks forward to our sessions. They give her an adult who is always there once a week to hear her and offer feedback or just listen. I love some of those comments. And there were some comments that weren't so positive, struggling with students who are not, responding. We talked about that in the beginning of this session. And so, it's not always easy, and the kids aren't always there for us either. But as a mentor, my strengths are listening, communication, guidance, resourcefulness, my experience, persistence, bilingual, cultural understanding, compassion, and encouraging. So those were some of the strengths that you guys said. Topics you discuss, as you can see, there's many topics. The academic performance was the highest, 98.8. Goal setting, emotional skills, academic planning. You can see there's many different topics that we can discuss, and those were the percentages that you said that you talked the most about. The most satisfying and least satisfying. Most satisfying, seeing the student grow. Least satisfying is restrictions on meetings. That was COVID. Not being face to face was a bummer. Feeling the gratitude of staying in touch always with both mentee and family. Most satisfying was the platform given me to an opportunity to consistently connect with my mentee during the difficult virtual time. The least satisfying is that I cannot connect with her in person, but that's not the fault of the program. And most satisfying, knowing I made the difference in a young person's life. Most satisfying, seeing my mentee move on and grow into a young, productive adults with earning their advanced degrees and remaining in touch with them. So there were a lot of positive, least and most satisfying. Suggestions. Let me know if my mentees are having problems in school during and not at the end of the grading period. Providing me with resources to help them if they're struggling. A lot of times we don't know that those students are having problems till it is the end of the grading period where we pull their grades. So hopefully we can do a better job on that as we go forward.
Let
Yeah,
me
go ahead.
let me chime in. I'm sorry, Michelle.
No, go ahead.
Mentors, so you are aware, anytime you want to know your students' grades throughout the quarter, just send me an email and I'll get you those grades. So that is not a problem at all, because like Michelle said, we don't pull grades until the end of the quarter, unless the student tells us they're struggling through one of the meetings they have. It's hard for us to know right away. Okay.
Yep. So more info needed on how to help kids study and improve their grades and scores. I think we put a lot in the newsletter for you to help you with that. Interaction between mentor, mentee, college readiness coaches to work together. We are going to probably have another college readiness mentor event coming up so that you get to talk with the college coaches and have a better knowledge of who they are and how you can reach out to them as well. Show mentors that portfolios the mentees have to complete. The portfolio information is on the webs or on the newsletter for the students, so the information's there of what they need to do going forward. And this is an incredible organization which I saw a need to break the poverty cycle, encourage higher education, jumped in with both feet. Every community and every child touched by TSIC is better for the experience. And what's on the horizon? So the quarterly I called it the Mentor Coffee Talk because I lived in New York for a while and I love to say it that way. What we heard was that we need a little bit more conversation with our mentors. So we're going to do a quarterly talk This first one will be October 14th at 8 a.m. So bring your coffee, your tea, your donuts, whatever. Let's talk. Let's connect a little bit. I will have a topic on coping skills because it's really interesting. We notice that a lot of our kids don't have coping skills. Well, some of us adults don't have very good coping skills. So we're just going to kind of touch on that, and then hopefully you give me some ideas of what you want to talk about the next time. The ambassador recruitment has begun, and we have quite a few that stepped up the plate, but we do need more additional workshops and trainings and opportunities to connect. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for all your support. I really appreciate all you have done, and how it's been pretty difficult in these last year and a half, 2 years, but we're all managing somehow. It's amazing. So thank you. All yours.
Thank you, Michelle. Great report. Thank you. And thank you to all the mentors that participated in that survey. All right. So now we'll have questions at the end. So about the presentation or any other program questions, we'll save those for the end. You could write questions in the chat box and we'll continue looking at that. But anyway, let's get started. And I want to introduce you to Will Hutcherson. He is an author, speaker, and the founder of Curate Hope. Over the past several years, he has become increasingly passionate about finding practical ways to bring hope to kids and teens who are facing increasing amounts of anxiety, depression, and despair. This led him to starting Curate Hope, a nonprofit that focuses on suicide prevention, mental health awareness, and partnering with educators and parents to help deal or heal despair in teens. Will seeks to build a bridge between local community and the schools and families that are navigating this mental health crisis. Every year, he speaks to thousands of teenagers in public schools across the country, letting them know that there is always hope. He is also the author of the book Seen: Healing Anxiety and Despair in Kids and Teens Through the Power of Connection. When he's not advocating for mental health, Will is a business executive of digital marketing company, and he's had the privilege of working and developing marketing strategies for businesses. He lives in Florida with his wife, Ariane, and his 3 kids, where you might find him listening to 90s R&B or hunting for alligators. So, Will Hutcherson, let's welcome him. And there he is.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And that's really funny. I forget, my wife wrote my bio. So when I hear that, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, can't believe she put the 90s R&B at the back end. Any 90s R&B fans, by the way? Like, anyone? Like, I see a few of you shaking your, oh yeah, I see that big wave there. Yeah. So that's when music was good. But thank you so much, Kimberly, and thanks for allowing me to join all of you. And let me just say this: I know that it's 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, and you're spending, some time with us. I want to promise you that in the next 30 to 40 minutes or so, you're going to gain some valuable tools that will help you as you help the next generation. And so I'm not going to waste your time. This will be valuable. You'll take away a few very practical things that you can use. And if you'll stay with me and engage with me here, I think it's just going to be amazing. As Kimberly said, I work in schools and I work with nonprofits. I work with parents with mental health issues with teenagers. And, one of the things I love about Take Stock for Children is that when we look at some of the key indicators to helping kids to overcome, mentoring programs are huge, huge pieces to that. And so I just want to start off and say that you guys are amazing. Thank you for investing in the next generation. Every time you show up, every time you connect with a kid, you are making a big difference. And the research shows us that. And I'm going to dive into a little bit of that here in a second. But you really do matter. Like, you matter a whole lot. And I don't think, okay, put it on my gravestone, I don't think there is a better investment that you can make with your time than in the next generation. I really don't think so. So thank you for doing it. Thanks for choosing to love a kid, love a teenager, and to be a part of their life. The reality is that I'm going to screen share here. The reality is that we live in a world that is desperate to feel seen. Isn't that true? In fact, I mean, the last couple of months have been really a time and a place where we've just not felt seen at all, right? I mean, we've gone through COVID and pandemics, and this is especially true for the next generation, that we kind of had this survival mentality, didn't we? And, you know, this survival mentality was, you know, hard for all of us, but it's especially hard for teenagers because we've already experienced and we've been experiencing a mental health crisis, specifically among the next generation. And so when you add this mental health crisis along with fear and loss and a brain that's constantly in a survival mode of, you know, fear for health, fear for safety, the loss of future plans, the loss of security, the loss of even seeing my friends every day, and potentially even the loss of loved ones. This is very difficult for teenagers to cope and to handle. And in 2020, and really even some of this year, I feel like we were just surviving. And with that, I think we have this deep need to feel seen on a deeper level. I think every kid is holding up an invisible sign that says, "Do you see me? You know, do you see me? Do you see beyond just the behavior? Do you see the true heart of who I really am?" And you know, in recent years, we've seen this rise of despair and anxiety in kids and teenagers. I'll give you a little bit of examples of the trends that we've seen. Since 2007, suicide rates have increased 76% in ages 15 to 19. Suicide rates have nearly doubled in teen girls, and the highest rate of suicide increase among all age groups, so this is all age demographics, is actually in kids between 10 to 14 years old. And so for many of us, we kind of think of like suicide risk being an older kid problem. But the reality is that younger and younger kids are feeling these high levels of despair as well. And depressive symptoms are up 21% in boys and 50% in girls. And suicide attempts among Black teens have increased specifically by 73% between 1991 and 2017. And there is an elevated risk of suicide among African-American boys ages 5 to 11. Now, researchers aren't exactly sure why there's an elevated risk specifically with this demographic, but it's important to note that there is an elevated risk specifically with African-American boys ages 5 to 11. In early 2020, an estimated 1 out of 4 young adults contemplated suicide. And early on in the pandemic, March 2020, the disaster distress hotline saw an increased volume of 891%. So what does that tell us? That tells us that we had a lot of trauma. We had a lot of, crisis kind of happening, and people were feeling it, and they just needed to reach out. And so we've seen these trends. And here's the reality: what every parent is feeling, and it's what every caring adult is feeling. Maybe you feel this way as you're thinking about this, is what can we do against this invisible enemy of despair? Am I missing something? Am I doing everything right? Like, we so desperately want to help kids and teenagers when they're facing high anxiety and despair, but oftentimes we just don't know how, or, you know, we feel powerless in many ways. As I've talked to parents, many parents have told me that they just feel powerless. They don't know how to help. And so they've reached out for resources, but they just don't know what to do. And that can be true for us as mentors, because we've seen this rise of despair. But here's the good news, and here's why we're kind of talking today. I don't want to tell you all the bad things. I want to tell you why I have hope, because the good news is that our brains can heal from despair. And here's the cool thing. Are you ready? This is a big thing. It turns out that yes, modern medicine, counselors, therapists, all these things can help the brain heal, especially in clinical depression and high anxiety. All those things are needed. But the cool thing is that research shows us that caring adults, parents, and caring adults like you, mentors, can actually be a part of helping influence the brain towards healing when it comes to despair and anxiety. So that's really cool, because you play a part. You can play a part to contribute towards healing in a kid and teenager when they're experiencing despair and anxiety. So let me explain that a little bit more. I'm going to give you a mini neuroscience lesson. And I know it's, you're like, man, I've had a whole day. Now you're going to talk about neuroscience. Hang on. I'm going to make this really, really simple. We're not going to dive down deep into the specific sciences of it. But to simply simplify this, your brain and the kids that you're mentoring, they're primarily made up of two parts. You have the right side of your brain and the left side of your brain. Now, your brain is made up of a lot of components, but we're going to simplify to these two hemispheres of the brain. Now, the right side of your brain is predominantly where your emotional processing takes place. And the left side of your brain is where your logical processing takes place. Now, in a healthy brain, you kind of feel emotions, you logically process, and kind of vice versa. You have this back and forth function. The problem happens when we experience high stress. Cortisol, a stress hormone, starts to flood the brain. And over time, high levels of cortisol can create this dispairing, where the right side of the brain and the logical processing of the brain, the right and left side, kind of detach. Think of despair as a dispairing, where the right side and the left side of the brain are no longer paired together. It's almost as if there's this barrier that happens between emotional processing and logical processing. And this is one of the hardest things that a person can face. This is why so often when you ask somebody how they feel when they're experiencing anxiety and despair, they might say, I don't know. Or they might say, I feel numb. Psychologists call this an emotional detachment. One philosopher early on in the 16th century called it the dark night of the soul. This is a very difficult thing for someone to face. And honestly, the truth is we've all probably faced a degree of despair at one point in our life. Maybe it was a season of despair, or maybe it was just a moment of despair. But chances are we've experienced this. Our brains are wired to respond this way when it comes to high stress and anxiety. But here's the cool thing. Our brains are also wired to respond to connection in predictable ways. And the brain does things predictably, does things when we feel specifically love and empathy, love and empathy. When we feel seen, when we see that somebody is connecting with us on a deeper level, it's really cool that the brain actually begins to come back together, even when we're in despair. Oxytocin, another hormone you may have heard of, goes to work. When we feel a connection with another person, when we feel seen, when we feel love and empathy, oxytocin can actually help reroute the brain and help create healthy attachment and even build healthy attachment within the brain. What this does is it helps re-engage that emotional processing along with the logical processing to what I like to think of as called an emotional exhale. Think of it this way. Imagine that you've taken a big, deep breath of air and you're unable to exhale it out. After a while, your face would turn red, your veins would start popping, you'd start to shake a little bit, and you'd either pass out or you'd go, right? And it would all come rushing out at once. Well, when the brain is in despair, it's very similar. You have all this emotional energy, this emotional processing that increases. And without engaging that logical processing, it just kind of stays there. It's just high cortisol, high levels of worry or fear, whatever it might be, just kind of churning there. But when we feel connection, when we feel love and empathy, we can actually help heal the brain and bring back whole processing. So this is really good news. The good news is that, yes, even though our brains can experience despair and kind of create this despairing, the good news is that people like you, caring adults who help kids to feel seen and feel love and empathy, can actually influence the brain and promote healing even when we're in despair. So that's good news, right? So I told you I wouldn't waste your time. I've only been speaking maybe 10 minutes, and hopefully you've already gotten something good out of this, right? So give me a thumbs up if you're like, yeah, this is good. I've got something good out of it. Good. I'm seeing some thumbs up. So that's great. That's what I want to hear. All right, but there's more. So here's the big question. Great. Well, how do we do this? Well, I'm going to talk through these 5 connection tools. So how do you help a kid feel seen? How do you practically, what does love and empathy really look like in a practical sense? So we're going to break down these 5 connection tools that can help you as a mentor with your mentorees to connect on a deeper level, especially when they're experiencing high anxiety or they're just experiencing like a lot of emotions. Even you might just see like a kind of a lot of emoting from the next generation. What do you do with that? Here are 5 tools, and we're going to explain each one of them for you. The first one is to show up. Show up. Now, let me say this. You guys, if you're mentors and you're showing up at your mentee assigned times and you're showing up regularly, that's a big deal, because showing up is honestly 50% of the work. There's power in simply showing up and not even saying anything. Your very presence communicates something. But I want to give you 2 practicals when it comes to showing up. The first one is show up before they ask you to. And the second one is to show up undistracted. Now, the show up before they ask you to is kind of already built within your rhythm here at Take Stock for Children, because you have a set time that you're constantly showing up in the life of a kid. And this is great because it gives you an advantage that other caring adults in their life may not have. For instance, school counselors, they have so many students that it's hard for them to just simply show up before a kid asks them to. They often have to show up when a kid asks them to, i.e. a crisis or a problem at home or a problem with academics. But you get to show up before they ask you to. What this does is it builds that bridge and that consistent predictability for them to keep the communication lines open. So just know, even if you have a day where you're hanging out with your mentee and it doesn't feel like the conversation goes anywhere, that's not wasted time. Showing up still communicates something very powerful. And specifically, what it communicates is love. When we show up, it communicates love. Kids feel love just by your very presence on a consistent basis. This is a huge, huge advantage that you have as a caring adult in your teenager or your kid's life. And then the second one is show up undistracted. And here's what I mean by that. Research shows that even the presence of a cell phone can decrease vulnerability in conversations. So to show up undistracted really means to say, okay, I'm going to be fully here, fully present. So put all the notifications, the personal life, set it away or put it away and just be fully there with your students. That communicates a huge amount of connection, and it'll allow you to actually kind of take the next steps, which are the next connection tools that we're going to talk about. So here's the next one. So now that you've shown up, you're showing up on a consistent basis. Now you see them. And here's what I mean. I don't mean see them physically. I mean, see them on a deeper level. See beyond the behavior to see the emotion. So let me get an example here. Let's see, somebody tell me a name of one of your mentees. Give me a name of one of your mentees. Anyone can pop in here. I like to do a little bit of workshop a little bit here. So anyone got a mentee they can tell me about?
We had a mentor that said Beverly in the chat
Beverly,
box.
okay, it was in the chat. Okay, got it. Beverly, okay. So let's say who said that? Let me look at the chat box here. So Joan, you said Beverly. So Joan, let's say, Beverly comes to your group and she's just really upset. She's upset because she failed her test. And, she's like, I can't believe it. I failed my test and it's the teacher's fault. And, Miss Smith should have done this. And, it's always the teacher's fault, isn't it, by the way? And she's just really upset. And what you're thinking is, and this is often what adults do, is we will kind of meet that emotion with just left brain logic, right? We'll just say, well, of course you failed your test, Beverly. I mean, you were playing on the Xbox late last night. You were chatting with your friends, doing the little chat snap, whatever, and you were, you haven't been studying. And we've talked about this so many times, you're going to fail your test if you don't put in the work, right? Logical processing. The problem is that when we have a right brain activated, emotionally activated child or teenager, and we meet them with left brain logic, what happens? We fly right by them. And the ending result is they feel misunderstood. In fact, you might have even heard a teenager say this to you when you've tried to logically process with them. You just don't understand, right? And what that communicates is that we were trying to meet right brain activated child with left brain logic. And so it's not that we don't want to lead them to logic. We want to lead them to better places. That's good and necessary. But let me propose a new way to do that. When a student is upset and evidently upset, and you see that emotionally activated child, meet right brain with right brain, then meet left brain with left brain. In other words, first meet right brain with empathy. Meet the emotion with emotion. Here's how that might work with Beverly. Beverly comes into the session. She's upset. She failed her test. And you might say, oh, Beverly, you failed your test? Yeah, I failed my test and it's the teacher's fault, blah, blah, blah. I'm so sorry you failed your test. Come here, sit down. Tell me about it. I would imagine you probably feel pretty disappointed. I do feel disappointed. I just can't believe it. And I need this grade. Yeah, tell me more. And you just listen. What you're doing when you say things like, I can imagine you feel disappointed, or you might even say something like, if I failed my test, I would feel pretty disappointed too, right? What are you doing? You're communicating empathy. And what that does is it meets right brain with right brain and allows that emotional exhale that I talked about earlier. You're allowing the child to just kind of go, and then once that right brain energy has decreased, then 10 minutes later, 15, might even be the next session, you come back around with left brain logic. And you might say things like, hey, what do you think you could do differently to get a different result? So when we do this, when we see kids right where they are and we meet right brain with right brain, we meet emotion and empathy first, what they ultimately feel is they feel understood. Now, I want to encourage you too, as you're trying to help kind of unpack, where they really are, to really include words about feelings, because going back to the structure of the brain, right? We have all this emotional energy on the right side. It could be really high. And oftentimes in our culture, we just go to simple emotions. You might hear a student just say, I just feel mad, or they might say, I feel stupid. Well, stupid's a belief, not a feeling, by the way, but we'll get to that in a minute. But the point is we need to help them to kind of dial that in a little bit more. One of the tools that I love using is a tool called the feelings wheel. And you can pick this up yourself if you'd like. You can go, I'll give you the website again, but it's the Scene, SEEN book.com. And you can download this for free. But the way you use this is you start in the middle. And oftentimes with teenagers, I'll say, hey, pick one of these middle emotions. You said you feel mad, or you feel surprised or scared. And then take that to a secondary emotion. So your middle emotions are your primary emotions. Your secondary emotions kind of go from that second ring to even further detailed emotions, on that third ring. And then have them pick one and just simply say, tell me more. Now, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but tell me more, by the way, is a great phrase. It's my favorite phrase to use because what it does is it allows the conversation to kind of open up, and it puts the microphone in their hands. So this feelings wheel is a great tool to just build the emotional vocabulary. And as they pick one and they start to express it, keep the conversation going, let them kind of emotionally exhale. Here's the big thing. When we show up, they feel loved. When we see them, they feel understood. Understood is what they really feel when we connect with them in this way. The next one is just listen. To just listen. Now, not just listen, listening isn't just not talking. Listening is active in many ways, right? So we want to listen with our eyes. We want to listen with our body language. We want to listen with our tone. And we want to mirror the emotions. So again, if you have a right brain activated kid, you want to mirror the emotions with empathy. You want to connect with them. But you might say things like, so what I can see you're saying, or what I hear you saying is blank, right? And then you reverberate back what you just heard. You might say, I can understand how you would feel that way. That's a very powerful statement, by the way. When you tell somebody, I can understand how you would feel that way. Or you might say, if that happened to me, I would feel the exact same way, right? And you're empathizing with them. You might say, I can imagine you might feel blank. To help guide them to a couple emotions, especially if they're having a hard time identifying those emotions. Sometimes when you ask a kid or a teenager, especially if they're in despair, if you ask them how they feel, they might say, I don't know. They go, I don't know. Or they might say they feel numb. And so to be able to kind of help them to identify some of these emotions can help encourage that emotional exhale. And then as you just listen, again, going back, write this down, by the way, write this down so you remember it, to just simply say, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. Tell me more is a powerful little sentence. And I want to encourage you to use it like crazy. The tendency for us as adults is sometimes while we're listening, we'll hear them say something, and then we want to tell them our story about that one time that we felt disappointed, right? But again, sometimes that can be helpful, but in these moments where you're just really trying to encourage them to open up and get that emotional exhale, simply just say, tell me more, and resist the urge to share your story. Keep them talking, keep them talking. So here's the question though. When you're listening to your student and you hear them say that they want to hurt themselves, what do you do? How do you handle that? So I want to kind of talk through a few little key pieces here. This is not an exhaustive list, but something to be aware of. Look for, they might feel sad, and not just a momentary sense of sadness. Maybe it's kind of prolonged sadness, feeling hopelessness, lethargy. Depression is physical, or even a worthlessness. Pay attention to some of these things. And there's more things here, you could pay attention to, but you just want to be aware. You don't have to diagnose a kid, but you just have to be aware that there might be something else going on. And so if you have a hunch, simply ask the question, hey, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? I would avoid the word suicide. The word suicide has been romanticized in our culture, and it's also a very triggering word. So I would just simply ask the question, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Look for intent, or even access to means. So if you start seeing them kind of getting their affairs in order, they start speaking, a little differently, or like, what's going on? Like, ask them straightforward, like, hey, are you thinking about hurting yourself? You might have to ask them more than once, by the way, and that's okay. So what do you do if the answer is yes? Well, first one is stay calm, freak out in the inside and not on the outside. All right. And then what you say right after really, really, really matters. And so I want to give you very practical things to say if you hear a kid or a teenager say they want to hurt themselves. The tendency for us as adults is to start talking to them and try to talk them out of their feelings to make them feel better. So the tendency is for us to say, oh, but you shouldn't feel that way. You got this person, you got so much to live for, etc. The problem is with a brain in despair, the way that gets translated is, you're right, I shouldn't feel this way. I do feel this way. So there is something wrong with me. So unintentionally, we can almost reinforce the guilt and the shame that they're already feeling. So the best way to respond when a kid says, I want to hurt myself, the best way to respond is simply to say, thank you for opening up. Thank you. So first one is thank you, like acknowledge the amount of courage. I love you. So you're going to affirm them and affirm them. So thank you for opening up. That took a lot of courage. I love you. And then the third thing is, can we get help together? Is it okay if we get help together? Now, your action is not going to change based off of their response. All right. You're still going to go get help. But you want them to be a part of that process and understand that the next steps here is getting help. So get help. Take Stock for Children has a procedure that you need to follow and kind of be mindful of that. But if for any reason you're not able to get a hold of someone, or kind of not sure what to do, the suicide prevention hotline, lifeline.org, or this phone number here, you can take a picture of it, or you could always Google suicide prevention hotline and you will find it. It will come up. But 1-800-273-8255 is just a valuable resource. I do believe that we're rolling out very soon a short code hotline that will be coming out. I don't know when it's coming out, but it's something like a 211 type of code. But I don't think it's due to come out until next year. But anyways, for now, that hotline is very helpful. And then the last thing is stay on top of it. Stay on top of it. Keep the conversation going, and don't make it a one-time conversation. Stay on top of it. All right. So we show up, we see them, we just listen, and then after we've kind of allowed that emotional exhale, we've met right brain with right brain. Now we speak life. Speaking life is just another way of saying that we're speaking positivity and affirming them into their life. Here's why this matters. Our world is just consumed with negative accusatory voices, right? It's all around us. And for a kid and teenager, especially a kid and teenager in social media, they're constantly getting these negative feedbacks. And so we need to kind of, as caring adults in their life, up speaking life and affirming them way more than we do. In fact, research even kind of points to, for every one negative feedback response, you need 10 positives to kind of undo the one. So we have to kind of do double time work here to help reroute the brain. The brain is very fluid, and it changes its structural pathways on a regular basis. And the cool thing is that we can help influence those pathways and those changes in a positive direction. And speaking life is a big component of this. I like to think of it this way, that like the way that sugar is processed in the body is like fast, and it goes straight to our hips, right? We all know that sugar is not good for us, but our body processes it very fast, and then it creates unhealthy, especially too much sugar, creates unhealthy results. Well, likewise, fiber, on the other hand, it creates positive results and can actually undo some of the sugar problems, right? But fiber is processed very slow in our bodies. In the same way, negative words are like sugar in our brain. It processes fast, and it's not very beneficial because our brains have a negativity bias. We're kind of hardwired toward the negativity bias. But positive words are like fiber. They process slow, but they're very essential. And so as you speak positive words and affirmation over your kids, it may take a long time, but it's good for them. The easiest way to just make this is just keep it simple. Keep it simple and do it often. Say things like, hey, I'm proud of you. You're amazing. You're smart. You're very talented. Yeah, you'll do amazing things in this life. Like, that sounds like a fortune cookie, but make it specific. Talk about your belief in them. Talk about the potential that you see. And these are generic, but pick out the specifics, right? Like pick out the specifics and constantly reaffirm and affirm those. For every kid that you're mentoring, there's something that just fills their sails, right? Find that one thing and keep filling their sails. Keep affirming them in those things. I like the way that Dr. Caroline Leaf put it. She put it this way in terms of neuroplasticity, is that thoughts are real physical things that occupy mental real estate space. Moment by moment, every day, you're changing the structure of your brain through your thinking. When we hope is an activity of the mind that changes the structure of our brain in a positive and normal direction. So when you speak words of life, words of hope, words of affirmation to a kid, you're helping to change the actual biology of the way their brains are structured. And that is really good news. So when we choose to speak life, the end result is they feel worthy. They feel worthy. That's the ultimate goal. And then the last one is to develop grit. Develop grit is to help them to kind of overcome negative challenges. Now, this is the goal, right? This is what we all want. We want to break the cycle of poverty, and we want to help them to overcome the challenges of poverty. Let me pause and just say this, by the way. I grew up in poverty. I grew up with a single mom and 3 boys, and my mom did her best, often worked 2 jobs, but it was mentors in my life, specifically in high school, that helped me to overcome the challenges. Many of my friends didn't graduate high school, and many of my family members didn't graduate high school, but I graduated high school. And then I did the unthinkable for my little community in my neighborhood, is I actually went to college, and I graduated college. Mind-boggling. Like, so all that to say, I'm a byproduct of people like you choosing to invest in a kid in high school. So thank you for doing it, and keep doing it, because this is the goal, right? We want to develop kids that have resilience and they have the grit to overcome negative obstacles. Now, the problem is that sometimes I think especially when we talk about feelings, inevitably we kind of get this idea of like, well, we don't need all this feelings garbage. We just need more tougher kids. We just need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. And I get that, because the goal is ultimately, like I said, resilience. But though the world is a tough place, the world is also an emotional place. And things have changed drastically. Maybe you've even wondered, like, how did we get here? Like, why are kids like at the place that they are right now? Chances are, if you're over the age of 50, you can't think of someone at your high school who struggled with suicidal thoughts or even attempted suicide. If you were to ask a teenager today, they all know someone. They all know someone. Well, how did we get here? Well, part of that is because the previous generation, we had a lot more face-to-face connection, and our brains interpret face-to-face connection different from digital connection. In fact, even the way that I've communicated today in this little space, for instance, is much different from the in-person event I did earlier today at the Extraordinary Charities, because it was warmer. I could see your faces a lot easier. I could feel the body language and the energy of the room. There was this connection that we had that's really hard to get in the digital space. Now, thankfully, we have these amazing technologies that in the midst of a global pandemic, we can still do things like this. So this is good news, and I'm thankful for the technology. We just have to acknowledge that even though the technology is amazing, not having face-to-face interactions has deeply affected the next generation. For instance, when you were growing up, you probably hung out with your friends every single day, which means you had these micro moments where you felt seen, where you felt love and empathy, where you felt connected with another person. If you had a breakup, you went over to, Jan's house and talked about how terrible Nick was. And, and Jan would be like, yeah, you're right, Nick's a jerk. And, you felt connected, right? You feel that empathy. Now kids are doing that, but they're doing it through the digital space. They don't receive the empathy the same way. The brain doesn't translate the connection the same way. But when we're face to face, when we have eye contact, when we have appropriate physical touch, and we feel love and empathy, it can actually help build that resilience in powerful, powerful ways. So what does it mean to help the next generation to build grit? The first one is help them to reframe. Help them to reframe. When they experience a negative consequence, help them to kind of look at that consequence, or that result rather, in a different light, with a new perspective. Maybe in the case with Beverly, going back to Beverly, you might say things like, hey, I know that you failed this test, and I know that's really disappointing, but what can you learn that you wouldn't have been able to learn had you not failed the test? Like, maybe failing can help us, right? You start to teach that principle of kind of failing forward, right? That failure can sometimes be the best teacher even. So that's reframing. Another thing you could do is you can help deal with the ants. Now, we all have ants. Let me explain what ants are. Automatic negative thoughts, right? And we get this because sometimes we get these little ants that run around in our brains. We all have them, But sometimes we can get an ant infestation, automatic negative thoughts that are just rolling all over the place. So how do we help the next generation kind of deal with those ants? Now, after the emotional exhale, right? Back to right brain, then they're in the logical processing. How do you help them deal with these automatic negative thoughts? Well, by teaching them that when they have a thought, to challenge the thought. So like, for instance, let's go back to the I'm stupid, the belief that I'm stupid or I'm not good enough. Help them to challenge those thoughts every time they feel it. This think acronym is a great tool. Hey, is that true? Is that true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? Is calling yourself stupid or believing that you're stupid, is that kind to you? No. Is it helpful? No, it's not even helpful. Is it inspiring? No. Is it necessary? It's not even necessary. And is it true? Well, you may feel that way, or you might feel embarrassed, but it's not true that you're stupid. That's not true. That's not accurate, right? So help them deal with the ants. When we do this, we help them develop grit to overcome the next the challenges that we're facing. In conclusion, here's the big takeaway. When we show up, they feel loved. When we see them, they feel understood. When we just listen, they feel safe. Safety is communicated with listening. When we speak life, they feel worthy. And when we develop grit, they feel empowered. They feel empowered. So if you want to do further reading on this, Kimberly mentioned the book Seen. We're sold out. It's been such a widely popular book, but it's still available on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon, you can actually pick it up, or if you go to thescenebook.com, you can click the Amazon link and pick it up. But this will take you deeper into these principles and just give you a little bit more practical tips on each one of these connection tools. And in thescenebook.com, that's where that feelings wheel resource is. So if you want to pick up and download that free resource, you can do so at thescenebook.com. You might find some helpful videos as well. So feel free to do that. And then Curate Hope, we mentioned Curate Hope. This is my nonprofit. You can follow us on Instagram or check out the website, curatehope.com. We'd love for you to do that. But I wanted to end our time together, and we're going to do question and answers. But before we do, I want to show you a video. We talked about kind of reframing, right, and helping kids to build grit. I want to show you the video that we show in schools with teenagers. And if you were at the graduation for Take Stock for Children, you saw this video. But I think it's just helpful for us to just kind of be inspired to know that there's always hope, and that what you do really, really matters. And even though at times it looks really grim and dark, and the pressures in the world around us can be chaotic, in the words of our great mentor, I would almost call him a friend. He's not a friend. I've never met him in my life, but Fred Rogers, he always said, when things are chaotic, look for the helpers, right? Look for the helpers. Well, you guys are the helpers, and that gives me hope. So let me share this video with you as we close our time together.
We are a selfish generation. I don't believe that I can flip the script and rewrite my future. One by one, we can change the world with acts of kindness as a joke. Hate can drive out hate. There's no end to despair. I do not believe that light shines in the darkness. No one cares about me. It is a lie that it matters if I keep breathing. Talent is more important than character. I'll never be good enough. It isn't true that I have a purpose and my choices matter. You see, money will make me happy, but naysayers may say love can change the world. We are a fatherless generation. No longer can it be said that families will stick together. 20 years from now, I will forever be alone. I refuse to believe that there is hope. All this will be true unless we flip the script. There is hope. I refuse to believe that I will forever be alone. 20 years from now, families will stick together. No longer can it be said that we are a fatherless generation. Love can change the world. Naysayers may say money will make me happy, but you see, I have a purpose and my choices matter. It isn't true that I'll never be good enough. Character is more important than talent. It matters if I keep breathing. It is a lie that no one cares about me. Light shines in the darkness. I do not believe that there is no end to despair. Hate can drive out hate is a joke. With acts of kindness, one by one, we can change the world. I can flip the script and rewrite my future. I don't believe that we are a selfish generation.
You are flipping the script for so many kids and teenagers. Thank you so much for doing that and investing your time.